Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This roundtable today is a collaboration between Energy Sciences and the City of Madison Heights. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Jennifer Schafer. I'm the Director of Company Relations at Energy Sciences. I've been here for 7 years and I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. And I'd like to introduce Melissa.
Melissa Marsh. I'm the city manager of Madison Heights.
Great.
All right. Well, I'm Michelle Peters, and I'm a program manager here at Energy Sciences.
How long have you been with us, Michelle, now? I feel
I've
like
been
it's
with us, wow, feels like a lifetime, 4.5 years.
Okay.
So I've done a lot of work with utilities. I worked on developing energy efficiency pilots, and I've become our subject matter expert in sustainability. So doing this work with Melissa is kind of where my two passions collide for sustainability and then like really being active within the community. And, we all live in a city, right? We all live in a place. So that is that passion in action.
Great. And Melissa, you said you've been with the city for 20 years, right?
I have been. I've been the
Yeah.
city manager for 6.
Okay. I did a little bit of research on our relationship with Madison Heights because I knew that relationship dated previous to me. It looks like we started working with Madison Heights in 2010. So you were with the city at the time. And really, it looked like from all the research that I did that it started with some grant funding that the city had received. And Energy Sciences was brought in to help reduce electric and gas energy usage. Can you say more about the relationship along the, throughout the years that both Madison Heights and Energy Sciences has created?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it started with a EECDBG grant, so environmental grant that the city received for about 125,000. So Madison Heights prides themselves on, we call it punching above our weight. We are very lean staff,
Mm,
so we don't have sustainability planners and that type of thing. So when we received that grant, we actually issued a RFP, but we ended up going with Energy Sciences based on the knowledge and the proposal that was submitted, which really was understanding of municipalities and what we were looking to achieve at that point. So they helped us with a wide variety of things from baseball field lights to a salt dome, changing out our lights to LEDs and doing benchmarking to really prove return on investment and savings long term.
yeah. So Shelley Sullivan and Frank Schulmeisters are the owners of the company. We're a woman-owned business. And I can say by working with them over the years and even prepping for today that Madison Heights is very close to their hearts. It's the work that they've done over the years has really been a project that they feel strongly about, and they they really hold that relationship is very special to them. So, Melissa, we had a long-standing relationship with the city. What specifically brought us to the point where we re-engaged recently?
Sure. Well, as a city manager, we have to take care of a lot of different aspects. And started out with an environmental citizens committee, and they were tossing all kinds of sustainability things at me, from composting to solar panels, recycling. It's just a lot. And then on top of that, there's electric vehicles, there's EV charging stations, there's grants and rebates. And, we don't have staff that specializes in that. I'm not a technical expert in it at all. And so we looked back to our relationship with Energy Sciences about how can we figure this out? How can we move Madison Heights forward in a sustainable way that we can maintain and go forward, not an environmentally sustainable way, but a financially sustainable way, and accomplish these environmental things that really makes the whole city healthier and more financially viable, and then the region as a whole. So Energy Sciences was a natural fit based on our former relationship. So we reached out to Energy Sciences, and I was introduced to Michelle. So she's like a part of the family now. I feel like I joke all the time that Michelle is like an employee because it's not like a consultant relationship. I don't feel like she's billing me by the hour. I can't call her. It's not like that at all. So
Yeah, it's pretty common that we'll be in sessions together, like webinars, and we'll either send each other text messages or a random email back and forth, like, "Are you here? Did you get this?" Oh yeah.
Had the privilege of spending some time with you both while we've been, engaging with this opportunity to share our story. And I can say it's very natural. It's clear you've built a friendship in it. You can see that.
Well, I think that energy sciences seems to have a passion for municipal government. I mean, that's one thing when I interview people and they say, "What do you like about working in Madison Heights?" I said, "It's not just Madison Heights. I feel like what I do on a day-to-day basis is really making a difference in people's lives."
Mhm.
And I work with a ton of consultants, but I get that same from Shelly and Michelle that, it's not about most recently I was like, how much is this costing me? And they're like, it's really more about we're making a difference in the whole region at this point by the work that we're doing in Madison Heights.
Yeah, we've had quite a few conversations with both Shelly and Frank and within the teams that all of the work that we do with energy efficiency does help people and does even, help communities. And somehow though, the work with the municipalities puts us closer in proximity to people and communities, and it just puts us a bit more in front of things in a different way. And I think that is really more of the heart of things, of really seeing, a more direct relationship with the work that we're doing and the way in which it can help people.
It's about being part of the community, right? Like the work that we do with Madison Heights, I engage with it on a daily basis. I have friends and colleagues who live in Madison Heights. I go to restaurants in Madison Heights. So I think we talk about relationship building, but relationship building, you have to be part of that community. And when you come to it from an authentic place, it shows.
Speaking of community, I'd like to ask both of you, probably from different viewpoints, but if you could explain triple bottom line and how it relates to what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So when we say the word sustainability, naturally what everybody thinks about is the environment, right? But sustainability is really the intersection. Think of it like, like that, those three rings that all interconnect with each other. And it's the social or people, it's the environment, planet, and it's economic or prosperity. So when all three of those things collide, you find true sustainability. And a really great example that I love to give people about how this really is practically is the act of tree planting, right? So we're all familiar with planting a tree. It's good for the environment, but it also reduces carbon dioxide in the air, which is good for the people around you. It helps, it provides like a health benefit. And then the shade from that tree can actually reduce your energy consumption by 20%. So that's economic. So one action that we think of as primarily environmental can touch all three of those things. And that to me is the triple bottom line in action.
Okay, great. I think that's a great analogy to have people be able to place what it is that we're talking about. Melissa, how did incorporating this concept of the triple bottom line help shape the sustainability strategy for Madison Heights?
Oh, worked sustainability into our strategic plan. So our city council really got behind it and
Mhm.
they, saw the financial benefits to it. It really did start with something as simple as tree planting.
Mm.
So making just a healthier community for our city as a whole. And then, most of them have children. They want Madison Heights to be a great city when their children grow up too. So they have embraced the triple bottom line and didn't even know they were doing it, which kind of feeds into people are doing a lot of sustainability things and they don't even understand what they're doing. So we adopted it as one of our main strategic goals, which really set staff on this path to try to figure out all these different things. What's best to spend our time on? What is the biggest bang for our buck, I guess? What's going to be best for the community long term? What can we finance? What can we come up with grants for?
Yeah. Financing. I've heard you say a couple of times, um, finance is an issue. Um, the amount of staff that you have working on things, maybe, it sounds like you run lean. So, all of this.
That's municipalities in Michigan.
Exactly. Yeah.
Financing, I think, is always one
Yeah.
of the number one concerns, at least from my viewpoint, former finance director, but that's all across the state of Michigan. I think that's true for government, just doing simple basic services. How do we have time to do sustainability? But there's lots of funding out there for
Mhm.
it. It's just a matter of having the technical skills to look for it, and partnering with the right people to bring that home. You don't have to have staff to do this. I don't have a sustainability planner. It's me as the city manager that has a ton of other things to do and my DPS director. So we don't have the technical background. I only just learned what GHG was about 6 months ago, so, I mean, I feel kinda stupid about that, but, you can't know everything. So that's when you have to partner with an expert.
Yeah. I didn't know what it was before I started here either. So
Good.
it's totally fine. I've heard you state too, when working through this process, there were some kind of aha moments, and one was that really cities may already have something already contributing to a sustainability plan, but they hadn't quite thought of it in those terms. And that might be kind of what you're alluding to here. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when we started, I had a little chat with Melissa, and I had a conversation with Sean, and we went through kind of like this questionnaire. Are you doing this? Do you do this? Do you do this? And then I started realizing, like, oh, wait. We are doing all of these things. And then Melissa told me about their participation in a program called the Green Communities Challenge. And then I took a look at those and how they intersected with each other. And then I did my research, right? I asked for things like the capital improvement plan and the budget. And I looked at all of these things together, and like a bigger picture was coming to me. And it's just like you had said, understanding that interconnection of the social, environmental, and economic, and how it all connects. The capital improvement plan connects with the budget and with these strategic objectives, and it's all sustainability. So that that was, that aha moment, and we talked about that. We had like a little conversation. I pulled out my favorite visual aid,
Yep.
like the three circles, and we talked about how it's all related and how it all goes together, and how a sustainability plan does not need to be like a 50-page document. It's really taking what you have, condensing it, and figuring out like what are those focus areas. What out of all of these things, what do we want to focus on? And that's what we did.
Segueing into creating a plan, Melissa, how does Madison Heights leverage what they already have existing to be able to reach these sustainability goals effectively?
Well, we didn't know what we had to begin with. I
Yeah.
thought we were doing no sustainability, and we actually received a grant to do a sustainability plan when I started working with Michelle on this. So I was shocked to know we were doing as well as we were. But the sustainability plan has broken it down into bite-sized pieces, things I feel I can manage, things I understand, and what my next steps are.
Mm.
So do you have money? You can do these things. If you don't have any funding, you can still do sustainability, and this is how. And like really, what do you want to look for grants for? So Madison Heights has been extremely successful in getting grants, and one of the reasons are that we do have plans in place, like the sustainability plan. So when opportunities come open, I don't have to spend 3 weeks trying to come up with a project. I already have one I can pull off the shelf and put in, which really led to other grant opportunities and bigger, I guess, opportunities again for the entire region.
Yeah, you're really already earmarking what it is you want to do. And so when you find the opportunities for funding, then you already know where you're heading and what your goals are.
Exactly, and that's how you're successful getting grants. The people who giving grants want to know, 1, you have a plan in place, and 2, that you can spend the money. They don't wanna give you money and you not be able to spend it, or to then be just spinning your wheels trying to come up with something to spend the money on.
Yeah. You already have a plan in place and they can see how you're going to execute it. In what ways did energy sciences assist Madison Heights in creating the sustainability plan that Melissa was just referring to?
Well, we took all of that information that we had, right, about what they were doing, and we looked for the commonalities in it, and then we tried to figure out based on that, like, what should the focuses be. And this was a collaborative process. This wasn't just me, like, grabbing into my mind and saying this. This was Melissa and I kind of spitballing some ideas, and we came up with education, communication, and efficiency as those focus areas. And as a general rule, you want to limit your focus areas. You don't want to have 10 focus areas. You want it to be preferably around the 3 to 5 range. I like keeping it small because it's manageable. And then from there, we took a look at some of these tools that we already had, like some actions in the Green Communities Plan, and then we dissected that a little bit further. And I think that's the difference between energy sciences and other people in this space. We're not just going to come up with a plan, drop it off, and leave. We're going to take a look at those actions and give some practical advice as to how do you do this, right? Like to me, it's not enough to say this is the thing. How do you practically do that, right? Because like Melissa had said, she has a small staff. She doesn't have a sustainability advisor or planner or director. So it's, this is a time-bound action. This is, how I think we could do it. This is how I think you can do it. And, it's an ongoing process. It's evolving. And we're trying to limit it, right? Like we could have like 500 different things, but we've tried to keep this down to like
Really
15 to 20 actions that are very focused. Oh, and guess what? About 6 of those are completed at the end of putting together this plan. So we're building momentum, and that's yeah.
So what you're speaking to, that approach actually we apply in everything that we do. So it's very custom. That word can be used and maybe lose its value if you use it too much. But really, whether we're going into, a building and assessing it, or if we're working with, a city on a sustainability plan, it's really specific to the customer that we're working with. So that makes sense to me. So you've referenced a few times, Michelle, the organization of Michigan Green Communities. Can you list a few organizations that also help support the issue, or they help support this grant funding that we're talking about? There is quite a bit of money coming through the federal government and state government. So to help all of us with our energy efficiency and sustainability initiatives. So can you speak more about some of the organizations that people can reach out to or look
Yeah,
at?
definitely. So here in the state of Michigan, a lot of our funding opportunities come through EAGLE, which is the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. They have a variety of programs from community energy management to you name it. It's a very practical application. There's some support mechanisms through the Michigan Municipal League. They actually are who sponsors and puts on Michigan Green Communities. And another really great source of help for us too has been leaning into one of their partner organizations, the Graham Sustainability Institute at the University of Michigan.
So, Melissa, how did Energy Sciences help with the grant funding initiatives that the city is obtaining?
Well, like Michelle said, when we came up with the sustainability plan, they didn't just drop it off. They really were, how can we help you start implementing these, and how can we help you find funding for that? And at the time, which has probably been in the past year,
Yeah.
there's grant webinars every other day, and the turnaround time for grants will be like a week.
You're right.
So there was a grant opportunity through the federal government, the Energy Futures Grant, and I think initially the turnaround time was like 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so I kind of jokingly said to Michelle, hey, this is like $500,000. Do you think we could do this? Now, normally Madison Heights would not even turn in a grant because we don't have the technology or the technical skills to do that. And I just don't think that Madison Heights, not that I don't love it, but I don't think Madison Heights would compete on a national level with the likes of Detroit or Atlanta or LA. And, I'm talking to Michelle, like, I would like to try this. And she's like, let's go for it.
Let's give it a try.
So she and I decide what's the worst thing that's going to happen. They're going to tell us no. So Michelle did most of the heavy lifting on the grant, but we worked ourselves over these past 2 weeks to get the grant submitted, only to have the deadline extended. But that's another story. But we ended up winning. We were one of 40 grants nationwide that got this grant, thanks to the help of Energy Sciences, and it really is going to be a collaborative, I hope, game changer for the region.
Yeah, that's a good amount of money, right, Michelle?
It is. And then the real work begins, right? We have this plan. So the next part is it's enough to get started, but then this builds on what we were saying before. It's a planning grant. So the beauty of a planning grant is it gives us the opportunity to put those resources out there and find some additional funding to help us implement these actions. And it was a real collaborative effort. Like Melissa had said, I reached out to Graham Sustainability Institute and Michigan Municipal League. They helped us, a graduate fellow helped us write a community benefits plan together. And we all learned from each other. And we took a couple local communities and a school district with us along for the ride. And now we're getting recognition. We were one of only 2 in the state of Michigan who got this grant. And some of our local partners like SEMCOG, their eyes are perking up. Some of our local neighbors, in like the communities around us,
Like, hey, we
are
can do
like,
this
hey,
too.
we want in. We want to figure out how to do this together. And it's called Evolve, a regional plan for decarbonization in Southeast Oakland County. So, we're trying to start small, but think big at the same time, right? Like it's our little community, but maybe it's the county, maybe it's the metro area, maybe it's the state of Michigan. I don't know, grandiose. Maybe it's the whole country. We start where we are though, and that's how we did it. We worked together and we got through it, and we had a big sigh of relief, and then some screams and jumping up and down, and then the next part begins. So that was that process.
Well, and we're really hoping that this builds a foundation for the region and maybe the state as a whole to move it forward. So
Yeah.
communities that don't have these opportunities can implement some of the same things we're doing, because I feel like that's really how you're going to make a difference on environmental sustainability, is not just Madison Heights, but it's the entire region.
Right.
Yeah, how do we come together collectively, collaboratively to help move these projects along, right? So, I mean, we even feel that way as a company. Yes, Energy Sciences does this, and we think we do a great job at it. But there's other companies too that do really great work, and so all of us together to bring everyone along is really, doing this work together. You had mentioned this earlier, Michelle, that you really focused on 3 main areas within the sustainability plan: education, communication, and efficiency. So now that the funding's here, we really want to talk about how you can expand on these 3 goals. Um, really, so Melissa, how do you envision that these efforts enhancing sustainability awareness and participation within Madison Heights community? How do you envision that these efforts take place?
I don't have the technical background, and I think
Yeah.
that's true for the majority of my residents and businesses. They don't have the technical background in at least environmental sustainability. And so I think some of the terms or some of the small steps that they can do as we make those more common or more easy for them to see the city implement, maybe they can implement it in their home or business as well. So I think that's going to have a huge community impact. The grant itself has a community engagement component. So just doing some education on what can they do. I feel like I'm a pretty normal resident and I want to do something, but am I doing what I should? I don't know, probably not.
Education is a really big component here, and sometimes even say a word like a boiler or like how does that relate to sustainability? We've run into this in other spaces. So educating people on what it is that you're doing and how they can make an impact as well feels like that would be a really big step here. Michelle, do you have more to share on that and like specific examples of initiatives or strategies that
Yeah. So, all 3 of these, it's funny. It's just like the 3 fundamentals of sustainability. They overlap with each other. They definitely do. So there's this education and communication component of it, right? So let's talk to the team at the city, make sure we all have the same baseline understanding
of what
of
terms?
what terms, what terminology we're using of what sustainability is. And then within the community, meeting the community where they are a little bit. We can ask them to come to us, but it tends to work better if we go to them, to a certain extent. So use some of those resources that we have, right? The environmental citizens group, right? They have like little projects that they're involved in. We can use them to be some of our ambassadors to share some of those things that we're doing. And then, when it comes to efficiency, we have an idea of where we're at, right? We've got that baseline set. Now let's talk about some strategies and some ways we can reduce that and maybe come up with a target for what we want to reduce our energy consumption to. and that ties in, very nicely with the environmental aspect of it and even with the economic aspect of it. Because if we reduce our energy usage, those are greenhouse gas emissions that we are taking out of the air, and that's more funds the city actually gets to use on things that are very important for its community and the residents.
Do you imagine that as you move through this process, you'll be seeking more funding to do certain projects, or how could you see that
So actually
evolving?
the Energy Futures Grant, the planning grant is like a phase 1. So
Yeah.
those 40 participants nationwide, if you're successful through the planning program, you automatically are eligible to apply for a phase 2 funding, which would be implementation.
Okay.
So funding kind of gives you some momentum to more funding, and it's all really based on the planning. So yeah, we envision this as being a long-term relationship and movement going forward. So
Mm.
it's not just a plan, it's actually a lot of action.
And working on that grant and that application was not just a one-time thing. We can take that same idea and we can use that to get more funding through the state of Michigan and through other federal entities. You know, Eagle has another couple grants that they've just rolled out within the last couple days, even that we're still researching to figure out how they apply, as does EPA and the Environmental Protection Agency and Department of Energy, DOE.
So one of the terms that I haven't heard yet, but I know is is something that, has come up in a lot of our conversation is Justice 40. Can
Mhm.
you kind of touch on how Justice 40 is involved in this
Yeah.
conversation?
So Justice 40 is a federal initiative, and it simply is that 40% of all of the benefits from a couple federal bills that were passed into law go to disadvantaged communities that are facing the burdens of climate change and have traditional socioeconomic disadvantage. And those are determined by the federal government using census data. And it's really just the federal government's way of making sure that everybody gets a piece of this, right?
Everyone's served.
Everybody is served by it. And we identified a handful of census tracts within the city of Madison Heights that are designated as part of Justice 40. So then we take a look at what those categories of burden are, and then determine how we can improve those.
One of the values at Energy Sciences is stewardship. And this conversation is everything around stewardship. So, how can all communities move forward with sustainability planning? And Michelle, this is probably more for you. How can we tailor plans to their unique needs? I think we've been speaking to it this whole time, but I'd
Mhm.
like to kind of wrap up with that.
I think what we try to do is I understand each community, each local government, each entity that we're working with, and w- n- get a deeper like a understanding of what they are known for, who lives there, and try to build on that. It goes back to what I was saying before. We all live somewhere. We all live in a community. So we take that sense of that, and we don't just try to make it fit into a template. It
Mm.
really is, adapting our approach to what we recommend based on all of those pieces of information that we collect, based on what it is we're hearing. And then we can take our expertise and we can provide some guidance. We can look for those commonalities and those threads. We can help that 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 community celebrate the fact that they're probably doing a lot more than they think they're doing. And when you start with it like that, you have that momentum, and then we can get into, a bit more of how do we practically do this? How do we implement it? What are those steps?
So, building off of that, how do you think energy sciences can stay adaptable and responsive within this changing environment?
Uh, it goes back to what we were saying, meet them where they are, right? So we're involved in trying to understand and really put ourselves in the place of people like Melissa, right? What are the challenges that she is facing? What are those changes that are happening? So I'm actively involved with the Michigan Municipal League and Michigan Municipal Executives, having these conversations on a daily basis, listening through, those continuing education sessions and conferences, and then reaching out to groups like ICMA, which is the International City County Management Association, which is that larger group of these public administrators, people like Melissa who are managing cities. What is it that they're seeing? And helping them with that interconnection, right? How does this all connect back to some sort of sustainability framework? What can we provide them? What technical expertise do we have that maybe can help connect the dots and the bridges between, a small, lean staff and all of those federal funding and state funding opportunities out there? Because in a sense, even when places like the Department of Energy are putting out those funding opportunity notices, it's still very technical. Even when they try to put it in plain language, as they say, it's still very technical. So I try to be that bridge between those two things, and then I try to always keep an eye out for what's happening next.
So really, you're speaking to being responsive and adaptive with cities, with their challenges, with the environment, with people that are
Mhm.
living in these communities. Also, being a bridge between some of this very technical and information that comes through these grants with both the city and what that information, what is required to apply for
Yeah.
these grants and stay. I know you're very active in different organizations too, which is another way of learning and
Yeah.
always staying current on what's happening.
Yeah. Breaking through the red tape.
Yeah.
I sometimes federal agencies, they have to write things a certain way to comply with certain requirements. So being able to explain, you already have this. We already have this. All we need to do is just take a look at this and figure out, in simple terms, how does this fit in? How do we make a circle fit into a square? Like there's a way, like maybe we mush the clay and we change the shape.
So, is there anything that I haven't asked you today that you would like to?
No, just that Madison Heights wouldn't be where it is in our sustainability journey today if it weren't for energy sciences. Like I said, we don't have the technical background, and so that's really vital in finding those private companies and those private individuals that can come in and help the municipality move forward. So it's really better for the long-term benefit of our community and the region as a whole.
Great. That's what we're all here for, is to make an impact and make the world a better place.
I would just say that it's very, very meaningful and personal for me. Like not that I wouldn't have this level of commitment, but I live in one of these communities that's getting this funding. So it became more than a job.
Mm.
It's very deeply a part of who I am and what I care so much about. And I want to help people move forward. Everybody hears I'm from the government and I'm here to help, and they're like, "Ooh, I'm not sure about that." No, really, we're from energy sciences, and we are here to help. We're not gonna just throw something at you and say, "Have at it." We're gonna walk you through the process step by step, and we care. That I think that is how I want to end it. I want to help, and I care. This is personal for me.
So, it's interesting that your purpose is meeting energy science's purpose, which is meeting the city's purpose along with our greater mission. So, we're all aligned, which I think it makes a really big difference. So, I want to thank you for spending your time with us today. We really appreciate it, and thank you for all your efforts.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank you.